Hey there, welcome to my channel. My name is Shawn, and in today's tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to do a super simple, beginner-friendly yarn embroidery design. So I'm going to go over the supplies that you'll need. We'll get our sweatshirt hooped up and onto the machine and get the whole process started. So you will need a sweatshirt or t-shirt of your choice. I will be using my 8x13 Mighty Hoop for this one, and a piece of no-show mesh cutaway stabilizer, and I do have my blanket yarn. Now, when it comes to these yarn designs, I started making these back in December of 2023. I did my first one on a single needle machine, and since that time, I've learned a lot, okay? So when it comes to the yarn, when you're doing a simple design like we're going to be doing today, it's just going to be a bow. I would suggest using the bigger size of the blanket yarn. Now there's also, let me grab this one, extra blanket yarn. So you have, and it'll say on there, it'll say extra, or like this one, it says big. So it will say on there. Now, when it comes to like phrases or like words, if it's going to be more than 4 letters, I would not suggest using the big blanket yarn, because it's just going to look mashed together and your words or your letters aren't going to be too legible. So I would suggest, if it's more than 4 letters, use the extra size blanket yarn, and that way it will be more legible and it will just look 100 times better than if you were to try, say if it had 6 letters and you tried to use this on, let's say, a medium or a small sweatshirt. It's going to be so bunched together, it's just going to look like a bunch of yarn on there, basically. So just make sure you're getting the correct yarn for the project that you're going to be doing. So I'm going to go ahead, we'll move over to the hooping station, get this all hooped up, and then we're going to get on the machine and get right into it. So let's go ahead and get our sweatshirt hooped up so we can get this sweatshirt stitched out. And I'm just lining it up with making sure it's centered with where I have my sticker at, just getting everything lined up. And that all looks good to me. And so I'm gonna grab the top part of my hoop and just snap it on. And I will have my free shipping code linked in the description box if you're interested in Mighty Hoops or their hooping stations, or if you're wanting to get some more. And so we are all hooped up, everything looks even. So let's go ahead and head over to the machine. So let's go ahead and get our sweatshirt on here. And just doing a double check. Okay, and we are good there. So then I'm gonna go ahead, and what I like to do is put it in, once I put it in embroidery mode, and then do a trace. So I've already selected my design, my color, my hoop, and so I'm just gonna hit ready and go into embroidery mode. And of course I'm going to do a trace. So I'm going to do a normal trace, and then it is going to go around and give me an idea of where this is going to stitch out at. And that looks really good. All right, so now let me move the camera a little bit, adjust it so you can see me. Well, I will stitch the design out first, and this design only has 916 stitches, so it's going to be really fast. And this particular design, it stops 3 times. So we're going to start with the left side and then the right side, and then we'll do the bow, and then we're done. Okay, and another thing, when doing these designs, you have to slow your machine down. Regardless of if you're using a multi-needle, a single needle, if you're a pro at doing yarn embroidery, I would suggest slowing your machine down. And I'm going to take my machine all the way down as low as it could go, which is going to be, I believe, 300 stitches per minute. It's going to be very, very slow, because you're maneuvering this yarn and you're having to loop and go behind the needles and things like that. So you want to make sure that it is slow enough where you can control the movement of the yarn without putting your fingers in danger, okay? So I'm gonna reposition the camera and then we will do the initial stitch out, and then we'll start with the yarn, and then I will show you the finished result. So let me move the camera around. All right, let's go ahead and hit start so we can do that first initial placement stitch. And so this will show us where we need to stitch out. Now you can actually speed it up for this part, but I've already slowed my machine down, so I'm gonna just let it do what it do. But for this initial part, for just the placement stitch, you can definitely speed the machine up. So I'll go ahead and speed through this part, and then I'll be right back once we're ready to start putting the yarn on there. Okay, we are ready to start with the yarn. And one thing I wanted to mention is you can get you one of these. I believe they're knitting needles or something like that. I just grabbed a couple of these from Michael's. I believe I got a pair from Joann's before they closed, or you could use like chopsticks or something like that, so you can kind of hold the yarn in place to make it a little bit more comfortable for you, I guess. So normally how I do it is I'm just getting my yarn together here, and I'm going to take it and I'm going to put it behind the machine, and I'm going to hold it in place. So I'm going to hold it over that initial placement stitch. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and hit the start button. I'm going to grab my yarn from behind the machine, and now I am going to just guide it to make sure that it is covering the stitch path. And you're just going to carefully follow along that stitch path, okay? And just continue on. And this one is going to cut at the end of this one. And so I'm going to bring it up underneath the machine. And I hit stop on my machine because now we're going to go ahead and cut. All right, and we're going to clean this up after the fact. And so now we'll go ahead and we'll get it ready to stitch out on the other side. And I'm also going to go behind and cut that yarn there. Okay, so now I'm going to get it ready so we can start stitching out on the opposite side. So I'm going to hit start. Hold it in place, and same process. And we're just following that path. And just keep your eye on the needle and just follow where that initial placement stitch that, and that's what you're following, and just take your time. And then now we're turning again, and we're going to have to go back up underneath. And I'm going to stop it right there so I can go ahead and cut this one. And then now we're going to start at the bow, but first I need to cut this other piece off as well. So I'm cutting that piece off, and now we're going to start at the bow, and this one is going to go around this way, back up and back around, and then it'll do a final stitch in the middle. So I'm going to hold this piece here, of course away from the needle, but I'm gonna hold this piece right here. And so I'm gonna hit start, and just again we're following that placement stitch as the needle moves. And if you're doing this on a single needle machine, same thing, slow your machine down and just take your time. If you need to stop it, you know, more often, definitely do that. Do what makes you comfortable. And now I'm just allowing the needle to get that right in the center, and then I move this piece that was still there out the way because I didn't want it to get too bulky right there in the center. All right, and then now we are starting to come around. And I'm gonna stop right there just because I want to cut this piece because I don't want it to be really bulky. And then I'm gonna hit start again and let it finish doing what it do. And same process. And now it's going to do that center stitch, that final stitch. And that is it. We are done. Well, almost done. To make sure that it's secure, I like to go ahead. First, I'm going to cut this piece off here. Okay, so we're done with the yarn part. So I like to restart it so it can do another stitch. And this is just to make sure that yarn is secure. If you need to do any movement of the yarn or, you know, anything like that, you can definitely do that with your knitting needle or chopsticks or whatever it is that you got. Okay. And then I'm just gonna take it all the way around and just do that final stitch just so it is secure. And I do this on every shirt I do, whether it's just like a cute little bow like this, or if it's a word that I have on a shirt, I always go back and do a second stitch just to make sure it is tacked down very well. All right, so I'll speed past this part. I won't hold you for all of this, and then I will see you back at the table so we can go ahead and get this cleaned up. So let's go ahead and get our sweatshirt off the machine. And right now, this is how we are looking. It looks good. Let me grab a lighter. And so I am going to go ahead and get this unhooped. And I love that the by mirror goes down to 300 for these designs, especially when you're doing letters. You want to go extremely slow. You don't want to speed it up. Now, when you're doing that initial placement stitch, you can definitely speed it up. But personally, I just like to keep it slow. Just keep my speed where, you know, I need it, and then do my embroidery, and then do that final stitch, and then that is that. Okay, thought my lighter was going out. Okay, and then I'm just gonna burn away those extra threads from where it started and stopped, or you can use some snips and you can then just snip it off. And I'm gonna grab my lint roller, and I also need to grab some water. So my water and my lint roller. And I'm gonna go ahead, and now that I've cleaned up those threads, I'm gonna go ahead and cut my stabilizer away. And I will have supplies linked in the description box, and I will have a link to where you can get this design. This is not a design that I digitized. I got this from my girl Southern Sage. She's over on TikTok. She does not have a YouTube, but all she does is yarn embroidery. She does some beautiful work. So definitely check her TikTok out if you are on TikTok. The other designs that I have digitized is very simple. These designs are really easy because it's just a run stitch. And again, when I'm normally doing mine, I will duplicate it once I complete it 2 times. So I'll have 3 stitch outs, the placement stitch, the tack down stitch, and then that third like reassurance stitch that I did, just to make sure everything is stitched and tacked down good. And so I'm just going to get some of this stabilizer cleaned up, and then we'll get the front of it cleaned up. All right, so that looks good. So now let's turn that right side out, and I love the color combo. That looks really good, even though I still need to clean it up. So now I'm gonna grab my scissors so I can go in and trim off any extra yarn that I don't need. And you can kind of go in and feel, and I'm gonna get my applique scissors, and like the center part, I'm just gonna trim some of this down a little bit, just so it's not too bulky right there. And this isn't mandatory that you have to trim any of the like the center for this particular design. I just want to trim it down again so it's just not too bulky right there. And then any extra that you might think you want to trim down, just go ahead and trim it. Okay, so that looks good. So I'm gonna grab my lint roller so I can get all these extra pieces of yarn up. I'm going to lint roll over the design and clean up any pieces that, you know, kind of sticking out, doesn't look too good. And it's just a few. Okay. And another thing about the blanket yarn, the big one, it's just so fluffy. And so that's why I really like to use that for larger designs, or for the less complex design, should I say. All right, and let me just get a little bit more here on the ends. Okay. That looks good. So now I'm just gonna hit it with some water. You don't have to saturate it with water, you just lightly mist it, and then I like to rub my hand over it. Okay, and this also helps get any loose yarn and kind of just helps fluff it back up so you can kind of hide those stitches. And I just take my fingers and kind of rake over it. All right, and that looks good. So that turned out super cute. I love the color combo. So that is how our bow is looking. If you do have any questions, let me know below in the comments. I will also have a link for the Buy Mirror where you can get $100 off of your purchase. So definitely check that out. But if you do have any other questions, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I will see you in the next tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.